Welcome back to the SBS Podcast. I'm Connor Kendall, not joined by Cameron Clark again. Cameron is busy. He's going to be out for a couple weeks, so it'll just be me running this show, steering the ship for a little bit until he arrives back. If you notice, I'm a little tired. It's a little late episode, but just wanted to get one out before some big things happen this week. We have honestly a little more packed show than I expected when I decided to record this. But I'll just jump right in from topic number one. Update on the MLB this far this season. Repping the A's hat, Oakland A's hat right now. Big thing, Rockies. I think for the season so far, I want to say they had 4 games under their belt, but I think it's more. Got to give the Rockies a little more credit than that. Let's see, they are 11-50, but they just won they officially today won their first series out of 22 tries. I don't know how many series they have played, but out of the 22 that they have played in, they haven't won any. So series number 23 against the Miami Marlins. I'm not going to say it's impressive because it's the Marlins. Miami is not a great ball club this year as well. Not as bad as the Rockies, but the Rockies get the series win. They won today 3-2, and then on Monday 6-4. So it's pretty good performances out there. Got a couple runs. Much better than losing 13-1 to the Yankees or 14-12 to the Diamondbacks a week or two ago. That was a slugfest. But great series. Obviously the best so far this season. I think they're still on track, though, to finish with like 150 losses, which is 100 games under 500, which is ridiculous. If that happens, that will be a MLB record, which I'm sure the Rockies do not want to hold. So let's cheer on the Rockies. Let's hope they get things going here. Hopefully this sparks something new. Gets them on a hot streak. Moving on, I want to bring up this point. Paul Skenes, he threw, I think, 8 strikeouts today in his game. I can't remember who the Pirates played, though. Astros. He threw 8 strikeouts. They lost the game, though, 3-0. The Pirates haven't been doing terrible. They haven't been doing too hot, though. The reason why I want to bring up Paul Skenes is, one, he is one of the best pitchers in the league, just in his second season, which is crazy how big of an impact he has had coming out of LSU, off of a national championship team there in Baton Rouge. But clearly is the face of the Pirates franchise, but could he possibly be the face of a different franchise? I know there's been talking points of whether or not the Pirates should ship him out of Pittsburgh while the window's open. The window trade deadline is July 31st, so the Pirates have a little less than 2 months to make decisions. The reason why there have been talks is the Pirates have not really been relevant in a long while and haven't made a whole lot of strides to become an elite ball club. They have O'Neill Cruz, obviously Paul Skenes, but it just doesn't seem like they are making that next step. So there are a lot of analysts out there, a lot of media predicting or wanting, I guess, the Pirates to trade Skenes. One, his value is, I don't know if it's at the top quite yet, but it is definitely at a level where the Pirates can get a lot of assets for him if they do trade, which could potentially be very important for the future of the franchise. And Paul gets out of Pittsburgh, gets into a possibly winning ball club to compete in the fall, which I'm sure is at the top of his list in terms of achievements this season and in his career. I'm going to look like a dummy, but I believe the Pirates did not make the MLB postseason last year. I'm almost positive. Yeah, I don't know why I doubted myself, but I was almost certain they didn't. But yeah, I personally on this take, I think I've been taking in too much rebuilding media for being in the Utah market with the Jazz in a thick rebuild, which that'll probably be a talking point later in this episode real quick. But I don't know what the Pirates GM's goals are short term. Long term, I'm assuming, are to obviously win the World Series, get into the postseason. I would ship him out. I think it would probably be best for the player, obviously, but you would get huge assets in return. I think the good outweighs the bad. I mean, it's going to sting a little bit, obviously, because you have such a superstar in terms of pitching, but if you're not going to be making moves, either, I won't even say by the deadline, if you don't have any plans to make big changes in the upcoming 2 seasons, then you're just wasting his potential. And I don't see why you would keep him around if you're just going to have him be on a team that is 500 or below every season. So if I were the Pirates GM, I would heavily consider trading him before the deadline this season, if not at the beginning when the window opens for next season, for the 26 season. But that's kind of a big talking point there. I'd love when Cam gets back on to pick his brain on that. Cam, if you're listening, let's talk about that. You'd probably have better insight on that topic than me. Speaking of Cam, his Angels are doing my Red Sox dirty. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I'm a little salty. Red Sox have not been on any sort of hot streak recently. They've been struggling. I believe they have... they're on a 2-game losing streak. They lost the series to the Angels already. They've lost, let's see, golly. They have lost 8 of their last 10 games. So the Red Sox, they got swept by the Brewers. No, they did not get swept by the Braves. They actually won that series. Those are their 2 wins of the last 10 games. But Red Sox have not been playing well at all as of late. Not in a terrible position yet, even though they are 4th in the East, in the AL East. I'm sure Cam is just thrilled right now because the Angels are looking a lot better. They did get swept by the Yankees 2 series ago, so that was kind of their ugly eye as of late. But I'm happy for Cam and his Angels. I love the Angels. They're probably one of my... I would say they're one of my favorite NL... NL. They're my second favorite AL team. I almost thought they were in the NL. But great series so far. Angels are going to get the win over that. We'll see how tomorrow goes if the Red Sox can keep the Angels from sweeping. Both games have been very entertaining, though, I will say. Angels set a historical record for hitting 3 home runs in the first inning at Fenway Park, which has never been done in the 1912, I believe, is when Fenway opened. So 113 years. It hasn't been done. Wild to think that kind of a stat. I mean, it's kind of a strange one it's kind of one of those pick and choose kind of a stat line. I feel like 3 home runs in the first inning, which anyway, that's still crazy for as long of a history Fenway has had and the Red Sox have had that has never been done until now. Great accomplishment by the Angels. Still, that first game of the series on Monday, great, really entertaining, great baseball. Tonight, went into extra innings, went into 10. Angels getting the win off of, I want to say Rengifo hit it. No, Ward. After a Taylor Ward single or something to get that point up in the 10th, and then the Red Sox, obviously, I don't know if they 3 straight or what, but couldn't get it done today, so we're going to hope for tomorrow to avoid the sweep. But as far as baseball, that's kind of a little quick recap of as far as the interesting highlights as of late. I'm sure I'm missing a lot. It's been a little minute since I last recorded a video, but there's that. What happened I believe, the end of last week, Big 12 Media Days. I listened to a little bit of what Brett Yormark had to say in his remarks. He was like 30 minutes late, I think, to the event, so it kind of threw a little bit of a wrench into my listening plans, but I was working, but always have the radio on, always listening. He has full support of the 5-11 model for the college football playoffs. For those who do not know what that model is, essentially 5 automatic bids. I think they want to stick with the Power 4 champions, getting automatic bids in addition to a group of 5. I don't know if I think the model will not stay as the top 4 conference champions get by, but instead it will then go to straight seeding. So, for example, I should have pulled up in reference to last year. If the rankings were Ohio State, Oregon, Alabama, Arizona State, and let's say a list of 3 other schools. Clemson was 8th, let's say, and Ole Miss was 9th. Ole Miss wins the SEC over those players. And Clemson wins the ACC. They're kind of lower in the rankings. They will not get higher seeds just because they won their conference. They would still get automatic bids, but they would be placed roughly around 8 and 9 where they finished nationally. So in terms of last season, Arizona State, they got the 4 seed I believe. Yes. Oregon had the 1 seed. I can't remember who won the SEC. I was trying to blank. Georgia, I think. Maybe. Georgia. Boise State got the 3 seed, and then Arizona State had the 4 seed. If it went to a straight ranking, Arizona State would have gotten the... Oh, how many teams were there? Golly. The 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4. They would have gotten the 11 seed, and Clemson would have stayed at the 12 seed. So it makes a little more sense. It rewards good regular season play. And then the 11 are the 11 at-large bids, which ideally, if you are in the Big 12, if you're a BYU, if you're Utah, if you are a SMU, if you're a Clemson, whatever, if you're in the smaller conferences that are not named the SEC or the Big Ten, it gives you a better chance to get an at-large bid. So I don't know if the commission or the committee sees it like that. I think they probably see it more as, we can probably squeeze in more SEC and Big Ten teams. Like we could have probably squeezed in Alabama. Now we can squeeze in Alabama. Now we can try and squeeze in Ole Miss. Now we can try and squeeze in Michigan, Michigan State, like try and get USC, try and get as many bigger schools in those 2 big conferences as possible is probably, sadly, what's going to happen. But ideally, in theory, this opens up the door a little more for the Big 12, for the ACC to get more than just 1 bid in. Media day. In addition to media days, Brett Yormark announced that they gained a conference high in terms of distribution money. The Big 12, I wouldn't say earned. They grossed or gained profits of a record number of $558 million, which that's great. That sounds amazing. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's going to be obviously distributed amongst the universities. I believe Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, and BYU are still in their final year of taking lesser cuts. Sadly, I think Utah, Arizona State, and Colorado, I think they actually don't have to take smaller cuts. I think that was kind of one of the deals coming into the conference, is that they would not take less money, less of the distribution money. But as far as a conference, that's great that this is like a record-setting, that was a record-setting year. Obviously, we had pretty good performances, great traction, in comparison to what a lot of people might not have thought would come out of the Big 12. Specifically from March Madness, Houston makes the national championship, which was great for the conference. Would have been amazing if they had won. That would have been a little more extra money. But it's also kind of sad in terms of the amount of money. If you compare it to the SEC last year, the SEC brought in almost $800 million, which is crazy. I mean, they brought in exactly $790 million and a couple extra 100,000. But to put that into perspective, that the Big 12 has a record-setting year, and the SEC put up almost $300 million more last season. Now, I don't know if that was a record for the SEC last year or not, but that is wild. That is insane for a conference to put up that amount of money. And it makes sense why these schools are bringing in these high-level recruits. Let me look at the Big Ten, what their distribution was last year. Last year, 928 million, so almost 100 million, no, almost a billion. That's crazy. That is even more wild. That's 63 million per school, it looks like, to 12 of its members. I'm assuming UCLA, USC, Oregon, Washington, those schools probably took lesser cuts for joining the conference, and that probably lasts for a year or two, and then they'll get their fair share. But still, now they almost doubled the Big 12. Anyway, college sports is just a big old money pot. I'm excited for where it will go. Brett Yormark and a couple of coaches, I think he made a comment about it, expressed their support in the expansion of the March Madness tournament, which that should be a talking point Cam and I have, because I'm sure he has thoughts on it. My initial thoughts are I don't like it. I think the tournament is essentially perfect the way it is. I think that it wants to expand to like 72 teams, I think, or 72 to 78 or 76, something like that, around that ballpark. Ideally, you look at it from a conference standpoint, there's more money to be made that way, so of course they're going to want to go through with it. As far as an entertainment way, I'd have to do the numbers, but I think that makes it that a couple of the higher seeds get buys potentially, or there are more play-in games. But I'd have to take a deeper dive into the exact proposals, and then hopefully me and Cam can have a conversation about it, because that is something very interesting. It's kind of as big of an update as I have on the college side of things. The big reason why I wanted to get an episode out is to address these points. Starting tomorrow and Thursday are the finals. Tomorrow, NHL Stanley Cup Finals. Panthers Oilers, I believe series starts in Florida. Yes. This is 3 straight trips to the Stanley Cup for Florida for the Panthers. Back-to-back for the Oilers. Obviously, this is now a rematch from last year, where the Panthers took home the cup. I decided to ask and message our good buddy Cam on his predictions for the Stanley Cup playoffs, on what he thinks will happen. Cam sent to me his prediction is a 4-2 series win for the Panthers. Cam says, quote, "Panthers just look dominant, while Oilers have some weaknesses. They need to play all 3 periods well to beat the Panthers. Look at Tkachuk to get his revenge on McDavid." Now, I was trying to think what Cam was saying there, because obviously the Panthers won the Stanley Cup last year, but then I remembered Connor McDavid actually won MVP of the Stanley Cup Finals. I don't know how many times that has happened. I know the only time it has happened in the NBA was in the 60s with Jerry West. He is the only player to win Finals MVP in the NBA and not have won the championship, I believe. Might have to fact check me on that, but I believe that is the only time that has happened in the NBA. But that's a good point for Matthew Tkachuk to take his revenge on Connor McDavid to get that Stanley Cup Finals MVP. But you could also flip it and say the same thing for Connor McDavid and just the Panthers overall. He won the MVP last year. He won the Finals, Stanley Cup Finals MVP, but didn't take home the cup itself. So if anything, I feel like that is more motivation, determination for the Oilers, for Connor McDavid to beat the Panthers. And I think the Oilers have an overall better squad than they did last season. But the Panthers are they just have been pummeling teams, especially through these playoffs. You can say the same thing for the Oilers. I mean, both finished out their series 4-1. Yes, they finished both series out 4-1. Oilers, Dallas, and Panthers. Who are the Panthers? Frankly, I don't remember. Panthers, Hurricanes. That's right. I think the Oilers have had a little bit of a tougher road to the Stanley Cup Finals. I know a lot of the media is leaning towards Oilers, favoring the Oilers to win the Cup this year. I'll make it interesting. I'm going to go Oilers. This will give Cam and I hopefully something to at least text about going into this finals season. I'm going to go Oilers 4-3. Oilers get it done. They get their revenge on Florida. Connor McDavid gets Stanley Cup Finals MVP again, but this time he's taking the cup with him back to Edmonton. For the first time a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup since the 90s. I think since 92, I believe. Because it has been 30 plus years. So, Oilers. I'm riding the Oilers. Gotta support my namesake and Connor McDavid. Part 2, NBA Finals start Thursday in Oklahoma City. I asked Cam. Cam didn't give me any in-depth reason. He says Thunder 4-1, freaking whipping the Pacers. He just thinks the Thunder are the much better team. And I agree. The Thunder are a much better team. I want Indiana to win. I will probably be cheering for Indiana to win, to beat the Thunder in the finals. They match up very well against the Thunder. I think they're probably the only team that can prevent the Thunder from forcing as many turnovers as they do on opponents. I think the Pacers hold on and protect the ball very well. I didn't think the Pacers were going to beat New York, but obviously they won that series 4-1. Or is it 4-2? I can't remember. I'm going to go Pacers. I want to cheer for the Pacers. I want them to win, and I think they're going to win. I'm going to go Game 7, 4-3 again for the Pacers. I think this will be a great finals season, finals run in both NHL and NBA. Back-to-back Game 7s. It's going to be great. And I think both the teams that the media, that the public, the casual fan wants to win will win. So that will be great. That'll be fun to look forward to. I'm going to give you exact times for NHL tomorrow at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, so 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on TNT True and Max. And then the NBA Finals start Thursday, 6:30 Mountain, 5:30 Pacific, or 8:30 Eastern on ABC. Another talking point I think I want to talk with Cam about is sadly the departure of the NBA on TNT. Their last broadcast was it Saturday or Sunday? I think they made the NBA really I wouldn't say relevant. They brought so much to the NBA. I think they brought a more entertainment aspect to the game. I mean, you could not have picked out or built a more perfect broadcasting crew with so much entertainment that they just built on top of each other than that crew with Chuck, Kenny, Charles, and Ernie. I mean, it's going to be sad to see all of them together so frequently go. I believe TNT is leasing them. That sounds weird, but they're leasing the rights to their contracts to ESPN, and I believe they'll have similar segments, post-game, halftime, post-game shows like they did on TNT, but not as often, I believe. I know for sure Shaq, I think, said he wants to take a little less time on TV. Not completely step away, but just a little less to have a little more of a break. But it'll definitely be weird not seeing the NBA on TNT, especially with those guys. So that's kind of the major NBA news and NHL news. To close out the show, I'm going to touch on a little bit of the Jazz. The Jazz recently just hired Austin Ainge, I believe. This is Danny Ainge's son. Austin Ainge, he was an executive. He was an executive with the Celtics for 17 years, I believe. Got a call from Ryan a couple days ago. Basically said, we want you to be director of basketball operations for the Jazz. And I guess he dropped everything and said yes, which I think for the Jazz, this is great. I think this will be really good. I know a lot of people are skeptic. A lot of Jazz fans are kind of a little nervous just because we're kind of seeing how this train is being driven with Danny Ainge at the helm. And so they're obviously taking that name and contributing it to the current status of the Jazz, which is just crap basketball. And it doesn't seem like the train is moving any faster or any farther forward than it is. But I'm excited. I think this is really exciting. This is going to be obviously a new era of Jazz basketball, but it's going to be a new approach, a different approach than we've seen before, I think. So I'm excited. A big takeaway from his press conference yesterday was, I can't remember if it was Ben Anderson or another media outlet, asked him what his thoughts on tanking, so to say, are and how he plans on to execute that this next season. He said, "We're not doing that. We're not tanking. We're done with that." Do I believe him? Yes, in a way. I don't think they're going to intentionally try and lose games like they did this last season. It's very obvious that that's what they try to do, obviously regulating minutes. So I think it'll probably come more naturally from the Jazz. Are they going to win 40 games, 50 games? No. Not even close. Are they going to win more than 17? Yes, I do believe that. They're not going to be. They're not going to have the worst record in the league. They're not going to have the bottom. They're not going to have a bottom 5 record in the league. I think they're still trying to aim for a top lottery pick, for sure. Top 8, because I think OKC has top 8 protected pick from the Jazz. So if they don't get within that range, then that pick goes to OKC, I believe. I might have to do more research on that, but I think from the top of my head, I think that is how that pick works. So I think their mindset is to still try and get into the lower records, higher lottery pick mentality, to keep that pick and not give it up to OKC, who might eventually win the finals this year and be in contention for it the next 3 years, probably 2-3 years. So I think that's still the mindset of the team. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that Austin gets into the chair and pulls the trigger and just says, we're going. We're opening the windows, we're opening the doors, and we're going after players. We're making trades. We're going to give up our 21st pick this year and a player to get that 3rd or 2nd pick this year. We're going to go after this big name. We're going to try and trade for this big name. I hope that happens this season, because that will grab my attention more. I think that will make it so Cam and I talk about the Jazz more, because I want to talk about the Jazz, but it's just so painful, especially the last 2 seasons, to watch the product that they put on the court. So I hope Austin turns the ship around. I hope him, Danny, Justin, Ryan, I hope they all just click, just keep clicking, and get this Jazz team up to where it's at least somewhat watchable. So that's my take. I think the hire is great, so I am very excited. I'm interested to see Cam's thoughts on it. So keep tuning in to the show. Hopefully we'll get Cam back. My plan is this week to get out at least 1 more episode, if not 2, before the end of the week. And then the following week, it'll also be me by myself again, and I will for sure get 2 out as well, hopefully 3. So stay tuned. I know this one might have been a little bit hard to watch or listen. It's just late. I'm tired. Gotta wake up in the morning, but we appreciate those who tune in and listen, and there's more to come.